Andi.
And welcome to Sinister Dynasty.
So, it's going to be part 2 of the David Bain case, and we're just going to be going into a little bit more information just regarding like the evidence and the timings of things, and basically just getting you to form your own decision about who did it, really. The whodunits.
Yeah, so in the first case, we just went over, what happened, what was theory 1, what was theory 2, and if you haven't listened to that, go give it a jam.
Yeah, or if you're already an expert, you can skip that, as most Kiwis will be, and you can come straight to this one.
Except me.
Except Ayla, who did not know anything. I'm still surprised by
I knew
that.
the name.
You knew the name. We'll take it. That's good enough, I think.
That's as good as it's going to get.
Okay, cool. So, we're going straight into the court case. I'm just going to quickly read out, just the 12 points, the 12 key points that were relied on by the Crown when sentencing David, so when charging David with the murders. So I'm just going to read them off. So the rifle and ammunition were David's, and the key to the trigger lock, which was in an unusual place where he had hidden it. That it was in the jar. I didn't really think it was unusual, to be honest. It could be. I don't know. It was just the key was in the jar. Yeah, it was funky. Anyway, so it was in the jar, and it was an unusual place where he had hidden it. The next point,
Who else is going to know where that is?
That's fair, actually. Yeah, I know.
Or did he get his gun out to go on the paper run and then
he was protecting the paper? Yeah, who knows? It's Dunedin, who knows? Okay, so the next point was David's bloodied fingerprints were found on the murder weapon. Yep. And the next point, David's bloodstained gloves were found in Stephen's room. So remember, there was that glove found in the bedroom. David also had fresh injuries to his forehead and knee. I saw a photo of the knee injury. It's like a scab, and by injury they mean literally like a tiny little scab, like the size of a fingernail.
Wow.
So there's
it's a scab at the end of the day.
As an injury, yeah, was an injury, yeah. And there was no explanation for them, and the nature of them indicated that it was he who had the fight with Stephen. You would have thought there'd be a bit more bruises or something from that, but
to be honest, I don't know where half of the injuries on me come from.
That is true, but then you normally get bruised, I normally get bruised, so just a tiny little scab. I don't know.
Then you see it and you're like, where did that come from?
Yeah, pretty much.
Who hurt me?
After a night out, yeah.
Not even after a night out, just living.
Fair, just living day-to-day challenges. Okay, so the next one was the glasses with a missing lens. So again, the lens was found in Stephen's room, and they fit David's general glass prescription because David normally wore glasses. They were found. The frame was found on a chair near where David was in his room when the police arrived, and again, the lens was found in Stephen's room, quite near his body. So the next one is the blood-stained clothing, including a green jersey with fibres matching those underneath Stephen's fingernails, and was washed by David. That's pretty damning evidence. I can't get around that. That's pretty damning. Cool. So the next one, so there was blood found on top of the washing machine powder container. And other places, and various light switches, which must have come from David's touch.
I have to admit,
that's pretty
unlikely that a murderer's going to put washing on.
Yeah. You never know. I mean,
let me deal with the washing, bro. I got you.
But then it's kind of again touching with the mental health side of things as well, like we talked about in Stan's episode. There could have been some other, I don't know, some underlying things.
Yeah, it's always, touch and go with mental health, because you could be in a, paranoid delusion or something.
Yeah, which just sucks for everyone, really.
Yeah.
Especially the people...
Except the washing.
Except the washing, yes, that is good. Except the washing. The next point was droplets of blood were found on David's socks, as well as blood which had caused the luminol. So that's how they measured the footprints around the house, to bring up part of the sock print, so you could see the base of the foot and some of the heel and some of the toe kind of thing.
Sock prints.
soft
Sorry.
prints, but like partial, basically you step down.
Okay, no,
only
I'm
part of
with
your
you.
foot. Cool. Okay, so the next one, so the computer, so where that little eerie note was put on,
Yes.
it had been switched on at 6:44 a.m,
Which was?
just after David had returned home from the paper run.
I mean,
If the evidence, including his own, were accepted that he was at a nearby corner around 6:40 a.m, right?
yes.
Cool. And the next part was David's partial recovery of memory might have enabled him to suggest explanations for some of the blood on him, but not all of it, really, or the clothes, like the blood found on the clothes or on the glasses.
He could have gone into like
Glasses.
shock though.
Yeah, he could have gone into shock as well. Or he just might not have done it. Yeah. Cool. And so the next bit is David heard Laniet, so his youngest sister, gurgling. So when he heard her gurgling, and he had said that he'd heard her gurgling, right?
That
and so
is the most awful
Yeah, I
thing to
know.
ever hear.
yeah, exactly. And he must have been home then, obviously, when she was live, because you can't make that if you're dead. Yeah, you can make it when you're dying, and then he would have been by her bed when the last shot was fired, because gurgles are kind of, a bit quiet, like, yeah.
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 He'd have to. So, what time did he say he got home? Like,
That's the thing. So he'd said that he got home. He got to the base of his house at around about 6:40 a.m, and it takes about 2 to 3 minutes to get up to the house. So that's what he'd said. So he'd got there around between 6:40 and 6:45.
So if it was someone else, he would have heard the shots.
Yeah.
And if it was him, well, it would have been pretty unlikely that she would have death gurgled.
Yeah.
It's called a death rattle.
Yeah.
And it's unlikely that would have gone on for so long.
Exactly.
Not fact, don't quote.
Makes sense though. But yeah, so, and then what he'd heard as well, so one other comment that he made was said that they were dying and dying everywhere, but they would have been dead, by the time he got there, supposedly.
I wonder where the gunshot wounds were.
That's true. I didn't actually touch on that because there was a lot of readings.
There's too many to make
there's so many readings about this case. It's huge. And to be fair, it is kind of a bit more recent, so there would have been a lot more access to like records and everything there as well, and popping it in. So yeah, there was that as well. And so this kind of touched what you mentioned on in part one, was not only did an expert say it was unlikely that Robin had shot himself because of the angle of the gunshot wound.
Oh.
Yeah.
I could be.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever he does.
Detective, whatever, an expert pathologist.
Nice.
Nice. A big P word. But Robin could not have killed the others because there was no one else's blood found on him. There was no blood at all of any type on his socks or shoes. And his fingerprints were not on the rifle. Although, if he had shot himself, he would have been the last person to have gripped it firmly. So there was no fingerprints.
I mean, if he shot himself, he'd most probably have to use his toe to pull the trigger.
We could have been very flexible. So there was no gunpowder traces found in his hands. And also, if he'd been wearing bloodstained clothing and was planning on killing himself, why would he have wanted to change his clothes and be in completely blood-free clothes when he shot himself? So those are very valid points. That's kind of hard to argue with, to be honest. We should just stop the podcast right there, I think. No. But yeah, it's just very interesting. Really. Yeah. So, going from that, there was a little bit more, because again, you've got to remember, David got released in 2007. So all that evidence put him in jail, but
what got him out?
Yeah, what got him out, really? Like, what got him out?
I am here for this.
Yeah, so let's skip all of these because there's a lot of reading. Not boring, but there's more interesting things. Okay, cool. So there was 3 courts of appeals. So there was a witness. Well, there was a few witnesses, but a witness was Mr. Cyril Wilden. So he was a former teacher, and he's also a registered psychologist. And so he visited Tyree's school, so that's where Robin worked.
Yep.
And again, reaching on that point that I'd made in the first part, like he could tell that Robin's mental state just wasn't super great.
I fear he's going through a divorce.
Well, yeah, he's going through a divorce, and that's pretty stressful. That is very stressful. And so when Mr. Wilden learned of the killings, he immediately assumed that Robin's mental health had just deteriorated, and he'd done it because he'd seen him at work, he'd seen him away from his house, and he'd seen that he was still quite.
I mean, that's really a big statement to.
That's from a psychologist as well, though.
Yeah, so he definitely must have been showing signs of being suicidal.
Big statement. Yeah. Pretty much. It was just, pretty much.
At what point does the psychiatrist make other people aware of the safety risk? Because if he has said, I thought his mental health just went, like, that's a heavy comment.
And he was working with children as well. He wasn't just working with adults. Like, Robin was working with children. He's a school teacher, a school principal, and he's working with kids, and that's how he earns his money, kind of thing. So you should put the kids first and be like, like, what's going on?
You should have put him first and been like, this guy is at risk of doing something.
Yeah, to himself and or others. Like, and then so that's reiterated a bit more by another teacher who had visited the school. And he'd found again the classroom and the office quite messy, like I said about the house. And also Mr. Mackenzie, so the other witness, was particularly disturbed by the writing and publication in the school newsletter of certain stories written by pupils at Tyree School. And apparently the students had been kind of a bit coerced kind of into writing those kinds of deep and dark stories, because children don't normally think about that kind of stuff. Like, they'd kind of been maybe pushed a little bit into doing.
I've heard some children say some pretty wacky shit.
Yeah, but lots of them though, and then only those being published, like in the school newsletter.
Yeah, that's a wee bit strange that only those have been published.
Yeah, and so there's another one as well. So a third witness, Mrs. Peace, she was a former teacher and registered psychologist as well. She'd never met Robin, but had visited the school after the killing, so she would have been involved in that. And a pupil had reported that Robin had hit him as well.
Yeah.
Hitting a child too, especially a little bit messy, right?
Definitely.
So what the court's conclusion was for that though was that they'd still consider that David's own mental state was at least as relevant as that of Robin's. So they were comparing the two's mental state, being like, oh well, Robin did do all of that, but David's mental state wasn't great, so we can still pin it on David, kind of thing. So I was like, okay. So there was motive as well here. Motive was, there was some, I need to charge my laptop. There was some notice. So Laniet had said to someone, Mr. Cottle, that she'd had a few sexual allegations against her dad, against Robin, and that was why she'd moved out a bit earlier as well.
He'd made sexual advances on her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh.
And she just mentioned that. Yeah, she just mentioned that to Mr. Cottle, the dude that she was chatting to. I couldn't even. Yeah.
How does that come up in conversation? Good on her.
Much, yeah.
Good on her for saying something.
Yeah, but also, how does it come up as well? But definitely good on her as well for saying something too. But yes, so the question was whether Laniet intended to make, or had she actually made sexual allegations against her father around the times of the killings. So that wasn't really brought up as such, and was basically thought of as that was just hearsay evidence, right? Mr. Cottle said this, but that's just hearsay. We don't really have any evidence to back it up, kind of thing. but he had just experienced like her being really distressed and crying a lot and talking to her about it as well. She said when he asked her about why she was feeling quite upset, she replied that there'd been lots of troubles at homes and that she'd been having an affair with her father. And she'd also talked about pregnancy and an abortion as well, but didn't catch it because she was quite upset. And you can't really understand. Sometimes you can't understand when they're quite upset. So it's pretty heavy stuff.
If he didn't catch it though, while she was talking to him, where the flip did it come from?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So it's you can kind of see
that poor girl.
Exactly. Yeah, and then just the gurgling as well. Just awful way to go. Awful life. Awful last a little bit anyway.
Yeah, she would have been past the point when she was gurgling.
Yeah.
She wouldn't have heard it.
What was also found was that Laniet was engaged as a prostitute too. That doesn't make really any impact on the story because you can do what you like and you're still being safeguarded and everything, but it's still going back to like the whole sexual allegations against her father and going to that whole distressed state that she was in from what she was experiencing. Like no matter what job you're in, you've still got like...
I mean, there's stresses in any job.
Yeah, exactly.
But I could imagine that would be a big stressor being so personal with a lot of people. That would definitely take a massive mental toll.
For sure, yeah, especially at a young age as well. Like she was 17.
You'd need to be such a strong person to do that. That's awful that she's done that. Had to do that at such a young age.
Yeah, exactly.
Like no hate on that community whatsoever. You do you.
Yeah.
Like you make that coin.
Yeah.
You've got to survive somewhere, and if that's the way that you do it, then that's the way you do it.
Yeah. It just sucks though. It's just
absolutely that's awful.
Really
the poor
shoddy.
girl.
Yeah. So there was that. So that was a motive as well. So Robin's motive could have been maybe David had found out about it, kind of thing. Like maybe just people had found out about it and just cracked.
I kept saying if I personally was to find out something like that from David's perspective, I would most probably strongly consider shooting the person who was doing that to my sister.
Yeah, but then would you want to keep shooting and kill the rest of the family?
No, I would not want to. So
that kind of, you can kind of again see
catch 22.
Robin's because Robin could have killed everybody thinking maybe they all knew or something.
Yeah,
and could have done that. And again, he was in a really fragile state of mind. Like by the sounds of it, he was quite upset. Again, understandable, going through a separation. Again, there could have been lots of underlying mental health issues with that as well. So just a little bit to think about. So the next one is we're going to be talking about the footprints. So the footprints that were measured in the luminol around the house, there was a discussion about it, and it was said that the prints measured were about 28 centimetres from heel to toe. But
what size is that?
Oh God, I don't know. I'm like 24 centimetres, I think. So 4 centimetres bigger.
Bullshit.
Well, I remember measuring. This is when I was going online shopping and I wanted to make certain that I was buying the right shoes.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
Oh, exactly. I didn't want to waste money, so I measured
for the shoe.
Measured with my little tape measure. But yeah, so it was measured at 280 millimeters, right? And some of Robin's socks had been measured at 24 centimeters, so maybe like our size foot.
Socks.
And socks thought to be David's were measured at 27 or 270 millimeters, right? So, however, so that's kind of what it was based on. Like,
is that a reliable measurement though? That seems so out the gate.
That's the thing. That's the thing. And that's literally what I was going to touch on is Robin's feet had been measured at the mortuary, whatever that is, the cemetery thingy.
Mortuary is where they do the embalming.
That place, and they'd been found to be 270 millimeters. Again, he might have been puffing up a little bit as well, so there's that inconsistency too. Swelling, yeah. Also, a day after the trial, David's feet were measured at 30 centimeters. This was not verified, but it is consistent because David's quite tall. So he was 6 foot 4 inches, and it hasn't been challenged. So 30.
I mean, your feet get longer in the day.
And so Pretty much, yeah. There's just different timings, different
feet aren't a
where
good
you're at. Yeah.
shoes. Why do we not use shoes?
What happens next is it was also argued that David couldn't have made the footprint due to his 30 centimetre foot length compared to the 28 centimetre prints. Robin could have made it though, because you know when you step down on your foot, there's a lot more pressure going down, so your foot can expand a bit more. So even though on the first day, or when it was first measured, it was measured at 24 centimetres, because it was like upright. But when you're walking down, when you're pushing down on the floor, it extends a bit more. It could push out a bit more. So he could have made the footprints. And again, talking about it from what I did in part 1, the 28 centimetre measurement for the prints might not have actually been from heel to toe though. So
well, it wasn't width.
Yeah, it was just, so it was a little bit kind of everywhere, and it was difficult to measure the luminol prints. So basically what you said is that it's just really hard to measure.
That is not solid evidence.
Yeah, no. It's really just, it's a good idea, but
I mean, the intention is there.
Yeah.
But if I was on the court case on the jury, I'd just be like, excuse me?
Yeah, what?
What?
But then also, it can be what state of mind you're in as well. Like if you're fully there for David and you think that David's done it, every footprint that he's got around the house, be like, no matter, because you're in that frame of mind.
Yeah.
Like even though it's like on the fence evidence or not even verifiable evidence, really, you can be like, he did it, just because you've already got that idea in your head. Basic psychology, Okay. So the next part is just going to be chatting about the computer. So again, there was the computer with the note on it. You're the only one that deserved to live, deserved to stay, whatever it was. I should probably know this because I'm doing the podcast on it, but something like that. And it had been verified that the word processor, word doc, whatever the thingy.
The word.
Yeah, the word thing had been turned on at 6:44 a.m. on the 20th of June 1994, because it had been measured by someone the next day who was like a computer analyst, and they determined that it was around about that time. So the message could have been typed at any point past this time. It's just the word processor was opened at that time at 6:44 a.m. And that was a key point in David's charge because he'd just arrived home at around that time. However, the person who measured it wasn't wearing a watch. Like he wasn't wearing a watch. So
what does that mean though?
He wasn't wearing a watch. So he didn't have like an accurate time. And so he used the watch of the person he was with. But the person he was with, the constable, there on his watch there was no second hand and like the 1 second, 2 second thing, and there was no differentiation between 5 minutes and 6 minutes. Like it just went up in 5-minute increments. So it could have been any time really. Like,
I am so confused with what is happening.
It was also then found out that this watch was 2 minutes fast. So it's like,
how could you tell that if it was going up in 5-minute increments?
Oh, because the hand would still move, but it would just go from like 12 o'clock and then 12:05, right?
Yeah.
And the hand would be somewhere in between.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
But so it didn't
have defining minutes.
Yeah, it didn't have defining minutes. It would still move, but also it was 2 minutes fast. Like it was just there was no a little bit silly. So later that everyone agreed that 6:39 a.m. could have been the earliest time that the computer was turned on. So not the 6:44 a.m. that was originally thought. It literally changed by a full 5 minutes.
Don't go off the time that's on the computer whatsoever. Use your watch.
Yeah,
it could be.
I don't even know.
That you have to set yourself. But don't go off the digital time.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know.
Oh my god, people.
Classic Kiwis, like just chilling. It's great. So yeah, anyway, the next point was the time David returned home. So yeah, he said, like I said in the part 1, he came home, even at the start of this episode, came home at about 6:40 a.m. and it takes about 2-3 minutes to actually get up to the house. So I know, like just before 6:45 in the morning. So there was a statement from a Mrs. Laney. So she worked at a rest home just down the road, and she'd normally see a tall figure. So we're just assuming David. She'd normally see him down the road a little bit further. So she'd assumed because she saw him as he was going up to the house. So she was like, shoot, I'm late, because she normally saw him down the road like a little bit earlier on, and she looked at the clock and the clock said 6:50 a.m. But then she's like, oh, but my clock is 4 or 5 minutes fast. So he was there around about 6:45 a.m. And this was tested in the next couple of days by someone, and it was determined that the clock on the car was a bit fast.
Can no one set their own goddamn clocks?
I know. So yeah, they were just unable to confirm what time David came home. They just couldn't confirm it anymore. So there was that as well. Okay. So now going back to the glasses. So remember how the lens was found in Stephen's room, and the glasses frame was found in David's room.
Yes.
So David did wear glasses, yeah, but his were actually being fixed a couple days before, like they'd been put in to be repaired a couple days before the murders took place. So he didn't actually have his glasses; they were just being fixed.
Whose glasses were they?
Oh, so that's the thing. So the left-hand lens was found near Stephen's body, and so maybe it fell off when they were having a fight, when Stephen and David were fighting, and then before Stephen was killed. It was examined, so the lens was examined and found to be similar but not exactly the same to David's normal glasses. David had actually said on trial that they were his mother's glasses, but no one really, it just wasn't really.
Yeah, well, they could have been borrowing them. So
yeah, exactly. See. Yeah, and he said that he sometimes wore them to watch TV shows or go to lectures, so he did borrow them. But he denied wearing them on the day of the murders, and couldn't say how the frame was found in his room. So on the trial, it was determined that the glasses were his, but there was actually photo evidence which had been shown that the glasses were his mum's. And what was also found was that the lens, it could have been possible that it was actually in that place before the murders even occurred, maybe a day or maybe even a couple of days before. So the lens wasn't actually moved in a fight, quotation marks fight, like it just might have already been there. So there's that as well. So David's bloody fingerprints on the rifle. So there were 4 bloody fingerprints found on the rifle, and they were identified as David's, even though he said the last time he'd used the gun was in January or February when he was hunting, and the murders happened in May. And so everything around the gun had been tested. The blood had been tested around the gun, and it was all positive for human DNA. But on the gun, the fingerprints that were there, like underneath them and around them, it wasn't human DNA. So he'd been going hunting, so it was just animal DNA, right? So that could have, even though everything around them was tested for human blood and was positive, the gun itself didn't actually have like that positive blood on it. And the fingerprints that were there, that was, oh, my tummy's going crazy.
What is happening? I am so tired.
Yeah, but it's just, so it was there was no blood on it, like it was just older animal blood. And Laniet's gurgling. So this is kind of where we chat about the gunshots a little bit. So she was shot in the head 3 times.
Oh god.
So she was shot in her cheek, above her ear, and on the top of her head. And there was a large amount of liquid found in her lungs. So the shot to her cheek occurred first, and then the gurgling happened from that. So that's how there was that gurgling sound there. Again, going back to Robin's mental state as well, there was that, like, he just was in a really shitty mental state. There's also that disorganisation and the ancestral relationship with Laniet as well. So there was that. Okay, so we're going to end on the key points, on the court's 3 key points. So, only David knew about the spare key to the trigger lock and did not think Robin knew about this. However, there was a possibility that Robin had used the gun without David's knowledge because there was spent ammunition. Yes, there were shell casings in his caravan. There was like 20 or so of them.
Yeah, that'd be weird to not think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, going back, so talking about as well, the key was in the jar, right? Like, he had a spare key in his jar, but the defence were like, there was the assumption that Robin would not have gone through David's room to look for the key. So that was the prosecuting team. But the defence contended that this could have been an obvious place to look. That's what I thought. I thought it would have been an obvious place to look. So that's kind of just how you view it, really.
So essentially, what are they saying? That the gun safe...
Either or.
The gun safe was a lock and key.
Yeah. So, I think, again, either or really depends on how you look at it for that one. The court's second point is with the bloody fingerprints on the rifle, but that wasn't really relied on by the prosecuting counsel, and the judge didn't draw the jury's attention to it. So even though the evidence wasn't changed, there was just not really much point to it, because again, it was talking about the human DNA, and then there was animal DNA like on the gun. So the third point was that there was a spare magazine that was found standing upright and almost touched Robin's hand. So with Robin's body, his hand was outstretched, and there was an upright magazine almost touching his hand there. And it was unlikely that he could have accidentally just landed in that position. But it's questionable that there was any significance attached to this point, as it was not included in the list of the Crown's main points. So I was like, okay. Yeah. So all of those reasons, the board concludes that, as asked by the appellant, the appeal should be allowed, and the convictions quashed, and a retrial ordered. So that's how he got released, really, in 2007. It was just a retrial of justice, and he ended up getting out. And later on, he got money for it. Yes, he got a payment made to Bain of $925,000 in order to settle the matter.
Yeah, that's because they believe that they wrongfully put him into prison.
Mm-hmm. And he was acquitted on all charges in June 2009.
Well, that then obviously shows they had strong evidence to say that he was not a murderer.
Mm-hmm. Or there was just the whole mistrial as well. Well, not mistrial, but just they put him in there for reasons that later on they'd been viewed in a different way or something, and maybe there was talks about the police that they could have handled it a lot better. A lot better.
I mean, they say that in every case, though.
Yeah.
Obviously, how often do they deal with murder? They don't deal with it on a monthly basis. They don't deal with it on a weekly basis.
Especially 5 in one day as well, at the same house from the same thing.
You're not going to be fine-tuned to that shit.
Yeah. So I think they did as well as they could, but there was that topic like, they didn't handle it well enough, and then again, like you said, there's no way you really could be prepared for it. But yes, it was that, and he got paid out his money, and he just got acquitted of all charges in 2009. So
I mean, to be acquitted is a big thing.
Mm-hmm. Especially for New Zealand, again, where this stuff doesn't happen all the time. Or does it? Listen more.
You'll find out.
But so I don't think he's in New Zealand anymore. To be fair, I would have left as well. Who do you think it was? Do you think it was David Bain, or do you think it was Robin Bain?
I don't think there's enough.
I don't think
there's enough information.
Yeah.
I am so
30 years later. What? 28 years later. Good maths. Quick maths. Yeah. Awesome.
You could honestly say it swung either way, but then I need more information.
Yeah. We'll leave you guys to it though, I think. Yeah, just have a think about it. Don't get back to us. I mean, you can, but we'll move on to the next case now.
We're moving on. Done and dusted. We'll close this case.
Yeah. But no, that was Andi.
And Ayla.
And that was Sinister Dynasty.
We'll see you next time.